everybody. Welcome to Catlike Reflexes.
Catlike
Reflexes. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Bryan Piitz, and I am joined here by the PodCats. Michael Serafin, Brendan Main, Derek Howard, and Nahanni Badgerborn.
Meow.
Is that the sound of a badger?
No.
Okay, good.
That could have ended a number of different ways. And that brings me to what our topic is today. Imagine that. We're going to get right to it. We're talking about alternate endings today. And that's one thing that nerds like to talk about. Not saying we're nerds or that you're a nerd, but come on. Lots of movies have alternate endings. Lots of books have alternate endings. And it's because the endings is what gives the movie or the book or whatever meaning, and so sometimes people seem to want to change it. So for a long time, some of these alternate endings were, mysterious, the thing of mystery and urban legend. But now in the internet and DVD era, a lot of these endings have come to light. Some people like them, some people don't, and that's what we're going to be talking about on our podcast today, as well as maybe some speculative alternate endings of our own, which we'll get into a little bit later. Brendan, you were talking about alternate endings earlier. What are your thoughts on why people would actually want to change the ending to something that's already been, seen and well established?
Well, I think that it's not necessarily people wanting to change specific endings, but I think it's important to remember we're talking about fiction. And the way people react to fiction, a lot of the language around that, often in the internet age, people talk about sort of canon. That is to say, oh, this actually happened. This actually fake happened, as opposed to this actually didn't fake happen.
Right.
So, I mean, let's say you're a Star Wars fan, and you watched the 3 movies, and you said, wow, that's great. I want more. But you're in the 70s, and the internet doesn't exist yet, and your life is terrible. It's probably just ham radio and braces. So, what do you do?
Wow.
And the answer is...
That escalated.
The answer is terrible fiction and terrible role-playing games, right? So you could read expanded universe stuff. You could find out what their babies look like and how they were terrible. You could find out, are there Wookiee Jedi? Why not? Are there Jawa Jedi? Sure, there's like 4. What about Yoda? Is there a girl Yoda? I don't know. I'm just imagining those hits. So I mean, this
Does she
kind
have
of
a bow in her hair?
It would look like Stripe from Gremlins with the lipstick and the wig.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty. Yeah, okay, I'm into it. That's my fetish. But all of these things, so it's sort of like, but
That's brave.
But the way that Star Wars preceded and ended, there was a ton of stuff on it, right? It was books and books and books and books and books, and sort of it expanded it. But these things get obliterated, right? So you sort of make a prequel, and it's sort of like, oh, every telling of what the Clone Wars is now gone.
Right.
It's just,
I believe that happened recently, where, in the past, the expanded universe, as they say, of Star Wars was considered canon, at least in the official publications.
Right.
They were like, yeah, it's canon. That's canon, of the Star Wars universe. And then they were like, J.J. Abrams is going to make a new movie now. All that stuff is now not canon anymore.
Yeah,
a lot of people kind of flip their shit.
And they kind of like hit a magic button. So like they hit the magic button with the prequel movies, and now they're going to do it again, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not people wanting the ending to change necessarily, but I think that people want to know that what they spent time with has cachet.
Right.
And it might not. It's sort of like, sorry, man, you just read some terrible Timothy Zahn novels, and they meant nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Good night.
Right.
So I can see how somebody could get upset about that.
Yeah.
I mean, fans don't generally have a lot of control when it comes to endings. But I mean, when we talk about sort of multiple endings or changed endings and so on, it doesn't find its way down to it doesn't find its way down to reader experience or viewer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can have theories about it, and you can have sort of view, but it's only very recently that you can say, you know what, I'm going to watch this version, because in this version this happens or that happens. I'm going to watch this version of Blade Runner in which he is an android.
Right.
So, I mean, we're beginning to be able to discriminate in ways that we didn't before.
Right. Oh my God, the unicorn! Sorry, I just got it. Got it.
There were small ways you could participate in film, in the sense that you could be at a test screening.
Sure.
And based on your reaction and the commentary that you give, and that's where sometimes DVDs end up with alternate endings, because
Right.
people were like, "Oh my God, that can't be the flippin' end." And sometimes it's not the audience, although sometimes it is just the executives who don't get what a filmmaker is doing. Terry Gilliam's Brazil is a really good example of that level of it.
Sure.
But people did have some input in the sense that if they really didn't like the ending, the filmmakers, or at least the people who put up the money, who are terrified for losing their investment.
Yeah.
They try. Usually, they
are
try
gonna
to
do
make
that.
it happier.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
But in every case, when something screamed badly, so they changed it. Like I would describe that as production control, because I mean it's probably on the insistence of the producers that they even be screened, right?
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Sometimes the fans sway it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new one, where the main corporate villain was supposed to be Shredder, and the fans were like, no, that's not happening. And it actually changed the end of the movie where an actual Shredder came in, thus negating the corporate scheme.
Was it James Avery?
No, it's James Earl Jones. He plays everything. Clue. Remember, Clue actually went to the theater, and it actually had
Alternate endings actually
alternate.
in the movie itself.
Yes, and depending on which screening you went to, you could have had ending A, B, or C.
Oh, really? It was depending on what screening you went to?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I
Because
saw it in the theater.
I thought that they just threw, because I only saw it on video, so they put all three, and I
I saw it
assumed
in
that's how the movie was.
Yeah,
I
I went to the theater, and they actually was like, and who do you think the ending is? And there was this little bing, and then an ending happened. It was there. The Howard Hessman, well, he was in all of them, but anyways, when the movie network came out a couple of years later, and I was able to watch the film again, they aired all three, and I was blown away that there were two others, and it was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah. Now, usually when they do change an ending, most of the time when people see it, they say, like, when they see the original ending and then the one, sort of the real one that they put out, most people say, like, oh, they ruined the ending, like, the original one was so good. But there's one example that I think actually kind of made it better, and it was Army of Darkness. The original ending, before it was released, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Army of Darkness, Ash is trying to go back to his own time. The wizard gives him these drops that he can take to basically put him to sleep, and he can wake up in his own time, which pretty much happens in the movie in both versions. Only in the original version, he oversleeps. He accidentally takes more drops than he's supposed to take 3, and he takes 4 maybe, or whatever the number was. And he in this version, he holds himself up in a cave. He puts rocks over a cave, and he goes to sleep. And then you see time passing, and his beard grows, and finally he wakes up, and he moves all the rocks from the cave, and he comes out, and he overslept. And now he's in the far future, which is apocalyptic, where the Deadites have taken over. And it ends with him sort of screaming to the sky like, I overslept! And that's the end of the movie. And it's actually kind of a cool ending. But the one that they decided they didn't want to go with that kind of ending, and they went with a new ending where he takes the drops. He does actually take the correct amount, but he doesn't quite do it right. He didn't say the words right or something, and so he ends up waking up in his own time, going back to work at the S-Mart. But now he still has, like, a chainsaw for a hand, and, like, or whatever. Like, he's, you know, and he's working at the S-Mart, but I guess because he did it wrong, the Deadites come back and they attack the S-Mart, and that's where you get those great lines about, like, you know, ma'am, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. You know, when he shoots her in the face, and then Hail to the King, baby, and all that all comes out of that, and it's all sort of beloved. So both endings were pretty good, but to be honest, I kind of prefer the S-Mart ending because it was more in the spirit of that film, I think. But that's a rare example, because usually they kind of screw up the endings.
Would the movie Up, the Pixar film,
Right.
would it have a good alternate ending if the wife came back? You remember the wife from the first 5 minutes?
Right. If she came back.
Yeah, at the end. So
The
it's
woman
like,
that made me cry for 15 minutes?
exactly.
That movie would have an alternate opening.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's just like, we're fine, and we're having babies now.
There.
The end.
The end.
And if nobody would cry.
It would be the
the
best
wife
movie.
shoots him off the Zeppelin at the end.
That's right. Turns out the wife was Christopher Plummer all along.
I think for alternate endings, I have two that sort of spring to mind.
Yeah. We mentioned Brazil.
Well, yeah, Brazil definitely is kind of one of those things. I mean, the whole film was sort of up for grabs in the sense that people really didn't get what Gilliam was trying to do and didn't like his approach. But certainly the fake happy ending where they, do ride away into the sunset kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which totally goes against the whole tone of the film, versus the ending where, his glorious escape is shown to be just a fading, dream of a mind lost. I think that sort of the debate is, well, what is the most appropriate ending for the story, and not, really what's going to make an audience happier or happiest in terms of the content. But one of the interesting ones for me has always been A Clockwork Orange, because the film ends, if you're going in terms of the book, one chapter early. And spoilers. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think this whole episode.
I think we could just do away with
spoilers. Well,
yeah.
I just don't want to be that guy.
No, I hear you.
Yelling at, because somehow you've gone this far in life and you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange or read it. Shame on you.
Right.
So,
blind spot.
Yeah, maybe.
Blind spot.
I'll give
blind
him that.
Spot, yeah.
Fair enough.
Blind spot.
You've convinced me. But the book has a concluding chapter where the protagonist Alex ruminates on all of his experience, and after encountering one of his other early gang members who has gone on to have a wife and kids and a family and a job and so on, he starts to think, this is circle of life. You're young, you do stupid things, sometimes you do terrible things, you can change, you can be a different person. Well, of course, that was sort of the growth of the character in the book. And in the film, Kubrick ends the film with Alex just recovering his right to choose good or evil, and of course reveling in all kinds of, hedonistic imagery. Mm-hmm. And so the big debate always was regarding whether, there is an actual growth and development of the character in the film. And lacking that additional chapter doesn't mean that the film kind of fall short of the book. And so that was sort of an interesting one to me, in that there's really those two different endings, and you can debate each endlessly, as I'm sure has been done many, many times. But
we could do an entire one on Kubrick changing endings. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
because Arthur C. Clarke, Burgess, and Stephen King, all of whom sort of have works that Kubrick have treated as sort of like, all right, you change the ending, what happens now? Or you change it sort of in some fundamental fashion, what happens now? Like Stephen King hates The Shining. It's gone so far as to be like, you got it wrong, I'm going to make my own Shining with blackjack and hookers. Mm-hmm. He made a version of The Shining, a made-for-TV movie. I mean, he's Stephen King, and I can't begrudge him anything, but it's kind of hubristic to think you're going to make a better Shining.
Right.
Because to do that, you need to make a movie that is better than not just another movie, but The Shining.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas Arthur C. Clarke, with 2001 Space Odyssey, changed everything, and he said when he wrote his second book, he was like, oh, by the way,
this is what we originally did.
Well, the sequel to 2001 is a sequel to the movie version. So
right.
All the changes, he basically rubber stamped it's canonical, and it was like everything that Kubrick says goes. Yeah. It's just genius. Forget my rinky-dink stuff.
Well, they did release The Lost Worlds of 2001, which is the novel based on the original treatment. So I think Clarke didn't feel so bad about saying okay, because his other version was out there as well. Mm. They actually both exist. So
right. Nahanni, you've been. Oh, sorry, if you had another movie you wanted to mention.
Actually,
first?
not a movie, but it's just something in terms of alternate ending. And I honestly don't remember the film adaptation well enough to know how they touched on this. I think they represented what was in the book, and that's 1984.
Right.
And the original ending, Winston Smith is scribbling in the dust on the table, and he's absently scribbling, and he scribbles in the original book 2 + 2 = 5. And when they printed the book, they took the 5 out because they felt it was absolutely too devastating that he was 100% completely gone. Even though the book ends with him admitting undying love for Big Brother, they left it as 2 + 2 =. And I think that was echoed in the film. But the original version of the manuscript was 2 + 2 = 5. So it's a very small point, but it kind of has huge ramifications.
Yeah, because whether or not, was he an android all along,
Yeah, I actually think Winston Smith was a replicant.
So it ends on a cliffhanger. What does 2 + 2 =
Yeah, sort of.
People are like, oh, the big math test's coming.
Crap. But I actually do forget, I think in the film they left it at 2 + 2 =. I think they just...
Yeah.
Because it's a very faithful adaptation to the book, as I recall.
I don't remember any of that. I remember it saying he loved Big Brother, and ending on that note, but I don't remember that.
It's, just in the few pages leading up to it when he's going through, listening to everything, and they're setting the stage for he realizes that he truly loves Big Brother. That was just something he was absently scribbling into the dust on the table. But to me, that's sort of a very cool alternate ending is, is he completely gone, or is there still a spark of Winston in there? Although the ending of the book would suggest not. Taking out the 5s is they're kind of like saying, well, maybe there is.
We're going to find out when J.J. Abrams makes 1985.
Yeah, I was going to say 1985.
The trailer hit, and it's all the people from 1984, and they're all ancient.
Yeah.
And they're like, here we are, back in... What was the city? The city of... It was no longer London, right?
Yeah, no, there was like Oceania.
Oceania and Eurasia.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway.
I had a joke there. Just imagine me saying something like that.
Okay. 1985 joke? You'll have to go back to it at some point.
Hey-o.
Hey. Nahanni, you've been pretty quiet for a little while. Have you encountered any alternate endings that have stuck out in your memory as being grievous or awesome?
Well, I've just been listening because when we started this podcast, I had to think a lot about it, and I've come to realize I don't like alternate endings. Mm-hmm. I have a bunch of DVDs at home where there are alternate endings, and I refuse to watch them.
Oh yeah.
I like to think each film is it's a work by one director, and that's what is intended. Alternate endings are a bit of a cop-out, I think, and so I don't usually watch them. I try to avoid them, actually.
So if you have a video game that has alternate endings, then you'll just smash it over your knee.
If there's an achievement linked to the alternate ending, I am all over that.
Now, it's interesting that you say that as a director's vision, and you don't want to wreck it. Well, how do you feel in the case then that the alternate one on your DVD is the one that the director really wanted, but a producer kind of came along and said, no, it's got to be a happy ending, and they sort of tacked it on there?
Smoking a cigar.
Well, that brings us to a whole other topic, because I think, there was a... Brendan, you made a comment before, how much do fans control things? I think they control it a lot more than we admit. I think behind every movie, probably far more now than in the past, there is a business plan. Mm-hmm. And they are very cognizant of who their demographic is. And they're very much aware of building a storyline that will maintain their demographic and their fan base so that they have the box office numbers that they need at the end of the day for their balance sheet. Mm-hmm. I see that all the time in film where I'm like, and you can see that in adaptations, and I don't want to go on to adaptations because I know we're going to go and talk about that eventually.
Sure.
But you can see especially if you go from that comic book to film genre, it's you see so many liberties taken because it's so obvious that they're trying to build their ticket sales and build a franchise out of something that might not exist in comic book world.
Right.
So what happens when it backfires? Let's look at Mass Effect, when they had a great game, and that was wonderful, and then they put out a sequel, and then finally the third of the trilogy, and there was massive backlash because actually it sucked. I don't know if any of you finished Mass Effect, the trilogy, probably Brendan.
No, but I spent about 10 minutes scanning worlds in the first one.
I played through all three, happily, lovingly, loved it to death, and when I hit the third, knowing that there was some sort of ending that was not being very well received on the internet, when I finally got to that point, I was like, this is bullshit, and I was as angry as all those people on the internet removed by 2 years. So what did BioWare, who I believe put it out, why did BioWare do? Well, they released a free, I believe, DLC that was a side mission. And it takes place maybe about a week before the end of the game. time-wise, and it's just like, hey, we have this mission coming on, and we're going to hit every single person who ever had a loving role in the franchise. And, hey, is that Hodor? Hey, is that Jack? Hey, is that... And they just hit all of them, and everyone gets a good, witty, snappy one line, and, hey, do you remember this character in this scene? And it's just a loving farewell fan letter to the people who were really, really shafted. And that is an alternate ending which takes place just prior to the actual ending, which was not well received.
Why did they do that? Do you think they're trying to maintain their fan base?
I think
yeah,
so.
there was a massive concentrated fan backlash. Because I mean,
backlash.
you think about these games are predicated upon the notion of radical choice. So literally, people can live or die, and if a bunch of people died in your first game, you stick in Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 2 goes thinking, who's dead? Everyone's dead. You play from there, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of meaningful choice, but then the question then becomes, how do you get a meaningful ending out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you could have, you think about something like Star Ocean, which has, its endings are permutations, where all the characters just fall in love, and so you can look at the permutations of all the little scenes, and they build it as something in the billions. But really, you have sort of like, something like 80 discrete scenes that you can get to from, because it's a Japanese game on the PlayStation 1, which is a sort of like the apotheosis of RPG bloat, like, kind of a 120-hour game, like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But incredibly justified.
Remember when Chrono Trigger only had 27 endings and we were all like, whoa!
Chrono Trigger, a game about time travel, is... Okay, Chrono Trigger is the best RPG of all time and will never be
give it
unseated,
that.
right? Like, Chrono Trigger is
up there, top 3.
I say top 1. Like, Chrono Trigger is just right there.
Wrestle for it. No?
Because that'll make it the
No,
best.
you can't. There's it's one of the few games that the world is sort of like freaking out, that like the internet is fruck out about. It's not overrated. It's just rated. It's just at the top.
Right.
And you had this sort of, and a lot of the endings were really wonderful, really meaningful. You had silly endings. You had serious endings. You had endings that had sacrifice. You had Pyrrhic victories. You have bad ends.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger to me, on the Super Nintendo, where there's sort of like good end and bad end, or like normal end and bad, like a Bubble Bobble. It's like, did you play 99 levels, or did you play into the levels where the levels no longer had numbers for names, they had letters for names, right?
Wow,
and
they ran
then
out of numbers.
They ran out of numbers. There are more Bubble Bobble levels than there are numbers in. I was going to say the alphabet, which shows how much I know about numbers. The number bet. And so there are, in video games, there's sort of, until then, there were sort of good ends and bad ends. And you had more sophisticated stuff done on PC. But in terms of console, like, that to me was major. And then a lot of the sort of impactful stuff we didn't necessarily get. So there were Japanese games where your characters could die for realsies forever, and they just didn't make it here on purpose. There was you're thinking about the Saga Frontier game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that. I hated that.
Yeah. So in Saga, preceding Saga Frontier, there's a series of games called Romancing Saga. It's an RPG, but every time your characters got knocked below 0, you had a separate HP count, like 3, let's say, and people could hit your corpse and you lose one of those forever. And if you died, and you were dead. Yeah. And so there's a multiplicity of characters in the game because your characters just died. There's
108 characters, if I recall. 108 characters, and a horrible game.
Yeah, so some of them are playable. Some of them are a little more difficult. The ones on the PlayStation 1 are a little more out there. But another one, there's a haunted house game for the Nintendo, which there was permadeath. I need to do some digging on Wikipedia to remember it. But you had these sort of 4 characters trying to get a haunted house, and it was an RPG style. And they could die. They could just get killed. And, and then like 8-bit come tumbling out of your closet at the end or something, like, horribly. So, but these are the kind of games that we didn't get translated over here because the idea was that we weren't ready for it, kind of thing. Regardless, I'm off track, but again, to get back to it, Chrono Trigger's endings.
Alternate endings, yeah.
Yeah. And there is sort of like canonical ending.
Speaking of canonical, we've been talking about alternate endings, but one thing we haven't really talked about today is alternate middles. So I'm going to pose this question to the PodCats today, who shot first? Really? Nobody just shouted one out?
Because
Well,
all I'm thinking of right now is they both shot at the same time.
no. I still go with hand shoots first because that creates the meaningful development of his character. And if you take that away, his coming back later and I remember this when I was young and saw this movie in the theater, and everybody got the fuck up and cheered in the theater because Han Solo showed up to save the day at the last minute. That's utterly meaningless if he doesn't shoot first, because he's kind of a scoundrel. He may not be the worst human being in the galaxy, but he's not the best human being. And he is self-interested, and he's survived by doing that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You just utterly destroy the character. But that's what George Lucas is all about, is creating something cool and then destroying the fuck out of it.
Maybe that's his
like
fetish.
Jedi.
Like, I don't.
Maybe that's his fetish. Maybe he creates something, takes it away, and then he just winks.
Yeah, I think he
with
enjoys
Muppets.
That. Yeah,
I just don't understand why Who Shot First is even a thing. In that, who possibly could ever go, oh, you know who shot first? Greedo.
Yeah,
I know this because, like, who wants Greedo to shoot first?
Nobody.
And it's just crazy. Like,
what is gained, by the way, by them both shooting at the same time? Because there was the 3 versions, right? And they were like, oh, nobody likes Greedo shooting first. Okay, they shoot at the same time. But I don't really see, because not only because Han doesn't still get his like, he's not a good guy still because he shot at the same time, not knowing that Greedo would shoot. But if Greedo shoots at the same time, like, nothing is gained by this ending.
Why would Greedo want to shoot him?
Right.
Greedo doesn't want to shoot him. He wants to take him to Jabba.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he wants to take him to Jabba.
And Han being incredibly smug before he kills him, that's him being smug because he's going to kill a guy.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
he's a calculating individual. That's why he is who he is, and he got as far as he did.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
again, that's the character growth over the film. It's just, it's asinine, and it's just bullshit pandering to, oh, well, there's a young generation who are going to watch this, and we can't have them watching a scoundrel, and it's like, kiss my ass.
Wow.
Well said. Well said. All right, I'm going to toss out some famous movies with maybe some famous endings, and I want you guys to tell me how you think that movie would be improved by an alternate ending.
All right.
Hit me
Lightning
with it.
round.
Lightning round.
This is officially called the lightning round.
This is the Catlike Reflexes round.
Yeah.
Lightning
Brian, I
round.
just said it was called the
Please
lightning
make-
round.
You did. I know you did.
I did it and I stamped it.
You did. You stamped it.
Please make one of the movies Staying Alive with Travolta.
Don't tell me what to do. Maybe I'll do it. Jaws.
It's the same shark. Oh, wait, no, that was Jaws 4. I'm sorry.
All right. They did not need a bigger boat. They needed a smaller boat.
They did it with a canoe.
They got a small-ass boat. The boat's too small. Jaws can't get it. Jaws eats them. The whole boat goes inside. But the boat is a giant knife.
It turns out that the shark didn't actually shoot first.
Nice.
That's right through him.
The shark's teeth fall out, and he has to just gum and nub the boat.
Gums.
Gum.
Yeah, he's called Jaws, not Teeth. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all jaw muscle. He might as well have been a bulldog, right? Yeah, Jaws.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Nahanni, you got anything for Jaws?
No, I just thought, no. God,
No.
I'm done. I'm
Okay.
done. I can't even top any of that.
All right. Let's see. What's another good one? Field of Dreams.
Oh, they
Blind
break
spot.
it into
It
a
wasn't
cricket game, and it becomes Lagan.
Yeah.
They have a Bollywood musical number, and they just go.
I'm with Howie. I think that's pretty awesome.
It wasn't the ghost of his dad. It was an alien. And I was like, I'm only appearing as the ghost of your dad because it's the only thing you can see me as.
Field of Dreams by M. Night Shyamalan.
I like to think he says, "Hey, Dad, want to have a catch?" And Dad's like, "No."
No.
Oh, ow, ouch.
Oh.
I haven't seen it.
He's
Ouch.
like-
You
It's
brought
like,
me
look, I'm
down
a
from
ghost
heaven for this?
Yes.
Look, I'm a ghost that lives in a cornfield. I don't have time for your shit.
I got corn cobs to haunt, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just a husk of my former self.
Oh. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, the boulder hits him, and that's it. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Splat.
Nice one. Nice
They
one.
open up the ark, and it's just dust.
I actually think
That'd be cool.
there's an extra pan shot after the one where it's in storage.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's actually at the Huronia Museum.
Local humor.
And then there's a drip from the ceiling.
And all the staff get their mops.
No, but
That's right.
Like, what would happen at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark if they opened it up and it was just like, it was sort of like, sorry, God is dead and religious for fools.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, they still need to escape, but the Ark opening conveniently blows up or melts every Nazi. Like it is like a literal Deus Ex Machina.
Well,
like,
yeah,
what do you do?
But
with
God
that?
hates Nazis.
God does hate
Clearly.
Nazis.
Clearly.
I think that
I think you make a good point, though. It's kind of funny.
I think that it should be
Especially Illinois
the
Nazis.
group
Yes.
of Storage Wars
So Nazis.
hanging out inside the warehouse bidding.
Bidding.
on what's going on.
I'm rooting for
What do you want
Barry.
this crate?
I want Barry to own it.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
He was probably old enough to remember it.
Oh my God, Barry trash.
Barry.
All right. Dirty Harry.
Ooh, Han shot first.
He fired 8 shots. Everybody's wrong.
That's right. All right. That one doesn't really have a famous ending, I guess.
No, it doesn't.
How does
Depends on
Dirty
which
Harry
one.
He
end?
takes a shower.
Huh?
Yeah, that's right. He takes a shower.
He takes a shower, gets some cookies, watches a movie.
He shoots that Cardassian Taylor in the back and in the water.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Dirty Harry. Okay, the ending of oh shit, I had one a second ago. Oh, Apocalypse Now. That's what I wanted to say.
Ooh.
Just 5 minutes of him kissing Brando.
Yeah.
Big makeout scene, and it gets all crying game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Last Tango in Cambodia.
Nice.
They have this scene where they actually butcher.
Marlon Brando.
They actually butcher a cow. Like for
They
real.
thought it was Brando.
They chop it apart, and the rest of the movie is like, so wait a second, they actually just killed a cow, right? I just watched somebody kill a cow.
And then they just watch.
No, that's Ruggiero Diodado's Cannibal Holocaust.
Then they just
version.
watch Brando eat it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
that'd be awesome.
He ordered it. He wanted it from me.
Get the butter.
All right, the end of Rocky.
Oh,
He just goes to Afghanistan and just starts mowing down people with his machine guns.
They should go to judging, and it should be shouldn't know what the judging is, but then Adrian should show up, and he should be like, Adrian, you never find out whether he won or not, but it doesn't matter because he did it.
Because he read the distance. That's actually that is good. Actually,
That would be a good ending if they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even know if he won. Like, who cares?
Right.
Who cares if you won?
Right.
He didn't win in the first one, though.
No, he didn't.
No.
Yeah, no, that is the ending of the
Yeah,
first one.
that is the ending of the first
That
one.
literally is the ending of the first one.
Yeah.
But if you don't know
It
whether
would be
he
nice.
won.
Yeah, I agree. It actually would be cool if even you didn't know
Yeah.
that he lost or won, because the point is that he made it.
Yeah.
Unless the kid wakes up and gets handed a snow globe, in which case it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true.
What was the thing
Is that
that was
Con
just a dream of just like it
Oh,
was just
sorry. That.
it was just an autistic kid's dream. Sorry, a kid on the spectrum's dream. What do you recall that? It was a TV show.
St. Elsewhere.
Saint-
It was the ending to St. Elsewhere after
Saint Elsewhere.
so many seasons. The whole thing was a dream, and because St. Elsewhere tied into all these other franchises, the multiverse was established. That's basically it, and all of the multiverse of pretty well. You can link Mario to St. Elsewhere. You can link anything to anything in Kevin Bacon land here, and it all relates back to some kid who has a snow globe and dreamt all media. It's really weird.
Maybe Rocky wakes up and he's actually just an innkeeper in Vermont.
Hey,
There you
that's
go.
really good. I like
Yeah.
that.
I had this dream.
Very good. Speaking of television shows, alternate ending 2, Quantum Leap.
Oh.
What was the ending?
The actual ending was he goes to this weird bar and meets all the people that he's met over all his leaping.
Okay.
But they're not really them. They don't remember him.
It's kind of.
And he meets a guy who is, but maybe isn't God.
It gets super heavy at the end.
It
It's
does.
Kind of, it like what is it with sort of like it's like Lost, right? It's
Yeah.
sort of like, well, you know, we had this cool supernatural thriller. May as well go to just heaven now.
Yeah.
Well, he talks to this guy who may or may not be God, but is definitely the one who's deciding where he goes,
Right.
and he convinces him that he has to go and keep doing good. And then on just text on a blank screen at the end, they say that Sam never returned home. He just kept leaping forever.
So
it's not like he's never yet returned home. It's like no, he never returned.
So if that text never appeared, what would the ending be?
Yeah. I think he goes back to his own time and he kicks Gushy in the balls.
Oh.
I think you see him flying off to Doom and he yells, "I'm not the first Sam."
Oh.
And he would file like the most major workman's comp
Oh, man.
Actually, that would
claim
be
ever.
Yeah.
Like, it would be huge.
Maybe him with paperwork would be a good.
Oh, he's just a pencil pusher. He's just sitting at a desk, and that's it. You just see this endless stack of paper, and he's just signing off, stamping stuff.
Yeah.
Be very Kafka.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything that they want the podcast to imagine? Because we're running a little bit short, or a little bit long on time, but that's...
All I want to say is Rosebud is not a sled. It's a hooker.
Yeah.
That's my...
Spoiler.
My alternate.
Actually, in
ending.
real life, apparently, because it was very loosely based on...
William
Not
Randolph
loosely.
Hearst. Yeah,
Hearst,
pretty strictly.
who apparently... I got a text just now from Joe that said, "Hey, Surf, get out of my chair."
Yeah, that's funny.
So you're the one watching. Anyway, apparently Hearst's nickname for his wife or his mistress or whoever it was Rosebud, and it was a description of her vagina. So when he's like, "Rosebud," it's like he's like...
How could you have a vagina that looks like a sled?
I don't know.
I don't think that's
Excellent
impossible.
point.
It's an accident.
I've been on the dating sites for 20 years,
Uh-huh.
and I can verify that this exists.
All right.
There you go.
Gross and weird.
All right. What do you think about some of the alternate endings to the movies we talked about? Do you have any... Whoa, what the fuck?
That's terrible.
Hey,
That's terrifying.
Has it always been
Here's
like that?
our
That is
alternate
the-
ending.
That is
Yeah,
the-
that's right.
That's the ringtone
You
from
thought
Crank.
we were ending the podcast.
From what?
That's
Crank.
right.
Quake.
Quake.
Crank.
What's
Crank.
Crank?
The movie Crank.
Crank.
From,
Based on a video.
It's him. Yeah, he's got
Yeah,
shot
yeah.
his heart back to
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Oh,
It's a
what's
good
this?
one.
You need
we'll
to
watch
see
it
that.
sometime.
You
It's-
need to
it's
watch
awesome.
It's
the
a blind
second-
spot. It's a blind spot.
Oh,
yeah, and
God,
you need
it's
to watch
awesome.
the second one too.
Okay.
I'll watch both.
What did you think of today's podcast? Should we have had an alternate ending? What did you think of some of the ones we talked about today? Maybe you want to let us know. Write something in the comments. Or maybe you can email us at info@catlikereflexes.com. You can also find us on Twitter, which is where the real action is, @CRPodcast. As well, you can find all the information about our podcast on www. Actually, you don't have to type that in. Catlikereflexes.com.
Wow.
I was just waiting to see what happened after I said that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap it up.
Okay, let's
That's
do
what I was
this.
waiting for. I was like, wait.
Cat-like reflexes are cool. That's an alternate song.
Nice.
Doodah.
Catlike
Do we have to do it for real for the OCD members of our...
Good. I like it. Ending strong.
Yeah.
Ending with a oomph.
Ending with an oomph.
Good night, folks.
Good night,
Good night.
folks.
Yeah.
Meow. The music at the beginning and ending of this episode of Catlike Reflexes was Who's My Baby by Capuchin. I found their music on Jamendo.com, and so can you. Or you can check out the link on the posting for today's episode on catlikereflexes.com.